Larian Studios, the Baldurs Gate 3 developers, are being accused of using AI, or I guess not accused, they admitted they use AI, but it's not very clear of how they're using it until recently. Sony's legal battle against Tencent has ended, as well as Naughty Dog, a Sony studio, is in crunch right now to meet deadlines. That is what we're going to be talking about today. My name is the Techno Jelly. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I do these videos on Monday. I also do videos on Fridays as well. So please check out the channel during those days. Now let's get right into the video. Starting with the fact that Larian head boss Sven Vickel, and I apologize for that pronunciation, did an interview with GameSpot and also did a few interviews with other people. One being a big one being Jason Schreier, and stuff from that Bloomberg interview started getting really out of hand for a lot of things. So what initially came out was that Larian Studios uses generative AI in their games, and which obviously is a bad thing, and I would be super against it if that was true. From what we can tell, though, from the clarifications of Larian themselves and some more updates on what was actually said through the articles on Bloomberg, PC Gamer, the Twitter threads as well, is that they aren't pushing for AI use, like is what the Bloomberg article initially made it sound like, which is why people were really angry about it, because Larian Studios originally have had a very anti-AI, or at least an anti-generative AI stance on most things. But the Bloomberg article felt like they were pushing AI onto developers, artists, all that type of stuff. And it felt really weird and strange because, from if you were at least understanding or listening to Larian themselves, they were very against AI. And basically, as the story continued to go on, it was more or less, I feel like it was almost clickbait at this point from Jason Schreier about how they were using AI, because Larian Studio, and I'm sorry, Sven Vinicki, the CEO, basically said they use AI in extremely early idea stages, and they don't even consider it to be concept art, because they still get concept art by real artists and they still have a huge art team. But at the very, very, very start, they were using generative AI stuff, potentially, not always. And they were also using it to use things in menial tasks, like helping with PowerPoint presentations or something like that, or placeholder texts and stuff like that, which is interesting, I think. And that also brings up a big discussion of like what kind of use for AI is actually good. Generative AI, I should say, because AI is used in tons of things, but the generative part is the problem that a lot of people have with. I personally think it's fine with if they are telling the truth. And I'd like to believe that they are telling the truth. I don't see them unnecessarily lying about this. And I think their statements on Twitter and all that type of stuff have been very critical, because they've put their foot in the ground saying they are not trying to replace people with AI. They're just trying to use it in ways to help productivity and explore the AI tools, just like a Google search or an art book, is what they kind of said in the tweet that they did, which makes total sense in my opinion. Now, I think you should just continue using Google or art books personally, because I think generative AI is just bad. Like, this is not even me coming about from the, is it ethical to use? I'm just saying, I just don't think it's very good to use as ideas. I think the ideas generated from generative AI art isn't very good, because it's very broken. It doesn't make sense, and there's a lot of problems with it, in my opinion, even when you don't even think about the ethical side of it. So I think that just using Google and art books and other people's art to develop your own ideas, and then just get the concept artists or the artists on your team, which I do have to say, they do have a huge artist team. They've said they have 72 artists, which is a really big, and 23 concept artists. So it's like, I don't see why you guys are using AI in that sense. I guess it's one of those things where since it's everywhere, they're like, hey, if you guys want to use this, go ahead. And some of them did, I guess, which overall is, I think, fine. I do think it is a good thing to be testing technology. But the problem is, one, I think Bloomberg blew this out of proportion, and this was hard clickbait for a lot of things. And I feel like it was mostly a Bloomberg problem rather than a Larian Studios problem, because it really does seem like the Bloomberg interview was just kind of bad, to be fair. And Another problem is that I hate Bloomberg because it's so annoying using their website and stuff like that. But that's a whole different thing. And I feel like we're in this weird middle ground where people, or like good companies, and I would count Larian as that, are using generative AI sometimes for prototyping or placeholder stuff. And I don't know if I agree with it, only because I just don't think generative AI is good. Because the placeholder stuff, it doesn't matter. Like, why are you using generative AI for placeholder stuff? Just use the regular placeholder stuff. Like, I'm not a developer. I'm not a programmer. I'm not a really like a writer, or like, I guess I am slightly a writer, but you know what I mean. So it's weird to me that you're using this generative AI stuff anyway, because are you telling me you don't have placeholder assets already? Like, you have to have placeholder assets. Or even so, a gray box doing a placeholder stuff is generally better than generative AI, in my opinion. So I totally get them doing that in the prototyping side of things, but I feel like just don't bother at this point. Because like, if you're making handmade stuff by humans anyway, I feel like you don't even need to bother or have that weird conversation of why you used it in the first place, which is, I feel like, just a problem of the technology in general. Because people, when you hear Larian Studio uses AI, it's a really big thing. I mean, they're making Baldur's Gate 3, they're making Divinity. It's a big problem for a lot of people, but AI is different from generative AI. Like, I'd be down for some machine learning AI in Divinity. That would be intense. If the NPCs or enemy NPCs can learn from how you're acting towards them, that'd be intense. But generative AI, it's just bad. And I'm glad that Larian has been very upfront of, hey, this is not what we're saying. We are not pushing hard. I'm glad that they are hiring, and they have a huge art team, as they said. So I feel like this is just Bloomberg clickbaiting everyone and people just reading the headline and just going with it and yelling at them. They are holding a Q&A session on Reddit, so hope people can ask their questions who really care. Luckily, anyone who says boycott, that's not going to happen. People are going to buy Divinity, I'm pretty sure anyway, because first of all, Twitter is a very small spot. The internet is a small space, even though it's huge, and it's a very small amount of people that actually care enough to check Twitter and look at their Twitter account and see the outcry. Most people are going to say, oh, cool, the new Divinity game's out, and buy it, because they don't care, which makes sense. So moving on from that mess to a different mess, Sony and Tencent have settled, I guess, their agreement between Light of Mortram and Horizon. Light of Mortran basically looked like We Have Horizon at Home style of thing. It was called a Slavish clone, which was officially said by Sony. And I really wish this was not a confidential settlement, because I really wish we got something more concrete of what was actually said, because everything's behind the closed doors and we don't know what they actually agreed on or not. The two things we do know is that Light of Mortram is not on Steam or Epic Games anymore. It just links to dead links, basically. Or sorry, not dead links. It just goes to Steam. It doesn't actually go to the game. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with this decision. Obviously, they settled out of court because Tencent didn't want to battle it out with Sony. But this might say to me that they actually stole things from Sony, potentially. Because things can have similar graphic styles and ideas, and yeah, sure, you can call it a ripoff, but it doesn't actually matter. They didn't steal anything. Like, we've had things like this with like Dark and Darker, or basically every Chinese game in existence, and it feels like maybe there actually something was already there, but they had to just settle it out of court because it would have been easier. Because it feels like no other game has really successfully did something like this, to actually settle something out of court. And it kind of says to me that maybe they actually did steal something, or maybe the assets were actually just straight up Sony's. But maybe this is just them going back on the drawing board. Maybe they have to change it, because I was actually kind of interested in Light of Mortram, only because like I'm interested what their take on a mechanical dinosaur high-tech game would be. So it kind of sucks that the game's just not going to have any chance, because we don't know. It could have been a completely different game. Just because the game looks similar doesn't mean the game actually is. I think a game we've covered a lot, Pal World, it looks like Pokemon, sure, but it plays nothing like Pokemon. So it could have been a very different game that we didn't know about, because I mean, people call Pal World a Pokemon ripoff, and like, sure, maybe the graphics heavily inspired, but like the actual gameplay, it's nothing like Pokemon at all. So it kind of sucks that we're not actually going to get anything from this, or maybe it is just a rebrand, so they have to change the name or something like that, and we're going to find it a year or two now of their new revamped game. I'm kind of hoping for that, but it kind of sucks that the game just kind of disappeared now, and it does feel like a bad thing that Sony can sue for it being a ripoff and it seemingly working, because there are so many games that you can count as a ripoff of some kind of game, because, you know, games can be very similar nowadays for good reasons and bad reasons. So I feel like this might be a really bad precedent in the next couple of years. Hopefully it isn't, though. That's what I'm hoping. And to stick with Sony, but to end it off with Sony as well, Naughty Dog, who have been making Intergalactic for the past, I feel like, few years at least, has apparently been hitting crunch mode for their Intergalactic game, because it's supposed to be coming out in next year, I think. And ever since Last of Us 2, which came out in 2021, so it's been about 4 years-ish, it feels like Naughty Dog hasn't learned anything. I do feel like this is a Naughty Dog problem. Basically, every time they make a game, we hear about the crunch time at Naughty Dog. I want to know what they've been doing for the past 4 years. Actually, I should rephrase that. Not 4 years, like the past 2 years, maybe. Because the game's supposed to come out mid-2027, so next year. And Last of Us Part 2 came out in 2021. So, like, yeah, you post-launch content for like a year, maybe. So that's 2022. So 2023, 2024, 2025. So that's basically 3 years of work, basically. And then in 2 years, it's supposed to come out after, like, from now, I guess. So, like, you don't have a demo working right now, or like you don't have a working playable demo for management or like for the higher ups to play or to show off in 3 years. Like it makes no sense to me. Like, what have you guys been doing? Because I'm not trying to say that they're not working on something, but I feel like there's some management problem or something's going wrong, obviously, because I don't think it should be taking this long to make a demo, because that's basically what the story from Bloomberg has been saying. And that's from the fact that it's been pushing a very long hours, mandatory overtime, but they're still not meeting deadlines to finish a demo for their game, which is weird because it's been 3 years and we've had apparently the staff have been working 60-hour weeks and stuff. Like, it's insane. Like, I don't understand, especially with the game also becoming, it's still 2 years out of way. So they're crunching for this demo and then going back to regular scheduling. But why do you have to crunch for the demo? Like, is this something that Sony sprung on you guys, or that's what I'm curious about. Like, why do they have to crunch for this if it's just a demo? Like, what happened between when they announced it to now to needing to crunch for this demo? Because obviously the game's playable in some way during development. So, like, why are they making a demo? Or what does demo mean? Like, are they talking about, like, are they in, like, the alpha stage or the beta stage? I'm so confused what this process has been for Sony. But I guess it's working, kind of. Because, I mean, Naughty Dog has basically made only good games for the most of its existence. There was the hiccup with the live service game that they're working on, but like the Uncharted games, the Last of Us games, all of them have been pretty good. So I feel like something is definitely working, but I feel like the constant crunch that they constantly have to do is insane, because, man, it really feels like it is a constant fight and constant crunch for them. So I hope it gets better, but it does feel like a long-lasting thing for them. And it happens all the time, because basically every product that we've heard, at least in the modern era, we've heard that they've had to crunch for it at some point. And you really shouldn't have to do that if you are managing your time properly. Because, like, the last full game that they've launched was actually in 2020. So I'm sorry, 2021 was the remasters or something like that, which is even crazier. So they've been working on this game for potentially 5 years. We'll stick with the 3 years. So, like, why? I'm just so confused. I wish we could see, like, why they are crunching for a demo and why this is so important. But I guess we'll never really know, unfortunately, unless something happens or someone leaks something. But I'll be keeping an eye out to see if that actually happens. Thank you everyone for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you like it. Dislike it if you dislike it. I completely understand. If you have anything to say, please let me know down in the comments down below. If you would like to support me directly, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/technojelly. Joining all these nice people going across your screen, you join the credits as well as a once a month live stream that you can vote on as well on Patreon. You can hang out and have some fun times. If you'd like to follow me on other platforms, I have a Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Goodbye, everyone.